We gotta go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's get the people in the chat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, December 14th, and we're going to be talking about RJ Oben, committed to Notre Dame yesterday, the defensive end from Duke, formerly of Duke anyway. He committed to Notre Dame yesterday, and that's a pretty big pickup for the defense. Just looking at it, they had a need at the strong side defensive end with let's see who left the team. Nana Osafo-Mensah left the team. Javonte Jean-Baptiste is leaving the team, and so they need to get some reinforcements there. So they got RJ Oben. So that's going to be a good start for Notre Dame on that front. They just got a commitment from kicker from South Carolina, Mitch Jeter. So he's going to be Notre Dame's kicker in 2024. He's already made kicks in Kyle Field. So that's nice to hear, and that's nice to see. As Notre Dame opens their season in Kyle Field against Texas A&M, we're going to talk about some other openings. Does Notre Dame want to add a third wide receiver? Does Notre Dame want to bring in an offensive lineman or a safety or any other positions? So we will talk about that. Jack Kaiser announced he is returning to the Notre Dame football team, which is great news for the defense. Joe Alt and Cam Hart have opted out of the bowl game. They announced they are going pro. And Joe Alt and Xavier Watts became unanimous All-Americans. So congratulations to those guys. So those are all the things that we are going to talk about today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching our show, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Links to our podcast are in the description below. A little bit different intro to our show today. We can't use the Kyle intro anymore. Someone put a claim on it, Jamie. Not him, but the music. So we got to come up with some other music, which I will do. We will do that for the people. We need a proper intro to this show, so we will do that, and we'll get that sorted out. And so, but Mitch Jeter, Jamie, do you have a big comment on him? What did you think about him? I think he was 25 of 27 or 23 of 25 kicking field goals.
23 of 25, yeah.
23 of 25. That will definitely work. He has never missed a field goal less than 50 yards in his career, Jamie. What do you think about him?
Seems good. I mean, he's the most accurate kicker, the most accomplished kicker that Notre Dame has landed, in the portal, right? Like Schrader, yeah. I think was more of the potential of it, because obviously he's got a huge leg, and I mean, he made some big kicks, obviously, with his leg, but he wasn't. I think his accuracy was kind of consistent with what it was at USF. He didn't really take a big jump from that. Obviously, he was a little bit hot and cold, and Groupie was good for Notre Dame, and obviously, I mean, he's kicking it for the New Orleans Saints right now, so he's doing pretty well for himself. But he didn't have that kind of level of consistency that Mitch Jeter had at South Carolina. So, I mean, I can't imagine there's a better kicker in the portal than Mitch Jeter. So,
yeah,
I would say a pretty huge win for Notre Dame. And even though he's missed, beyond 50, he's made from 50 beyond 50 too. So, which is, pretty kind of normal to be about, not to be the most accurate beyond 50. And I just think that I think the concept of going after somebody who's proven is an incredibly smart way to go. And it's the way that I think that Notre Dame should always do it. It's you're always going to get kickers who are at very least above average in the portal that you can get for one or maybe more years, right? And so I think that's big. And I think you see with taking a guy, like if you get a Justin Yoon and he ends up being your kicker for 4 years, fantastic, right? That's fantastic. But I mean, John Doerr ended up working out okay, but that did not look like a good.
That was tough.
pickup.
That was the first couple kicks of his career were shaky, to say the least.
And he ended up being pretty good, but certainly not like elite or anything like that. And I would say, like, even if you look at like Kyle Brinza, who obviously made some big kicks for Notre Dame over the years, he also missed some big kicks too. So I think you can also get stuck with a guy that just doesn't have it when he gets and obviously Notre Dame, I can't remember Brian, I can't remember his first name now, but now because he never even really kicked for Notre Dame.
Oh yeah,
but
I can't remember his name either. That's weird.
Yeah, but
Mike,
I mean, he was no, not our good buddy MB.
I was about to say MB.
Yeah. Shout
Josh
out to Michael
Bryant.
Bryan. Yeah.
Josh Bryant. Tyler
Josh Bryant.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, he ended up not even being close to being the kicker. Like, he never even came close to like winning the kickoff job or anything like that. So, and that just somehow that's what it is. Sometimes those guys that, and if you scholarship a kicker who's, as a freshman, I mean, Notre Dame doesn't want to run off anyone, or they don't want to, do that with people. But and especially if someone who's choosing Notre Dame as a freshman like that, as a kicker, that guy's choosing it for the degree. And if all of a sudden it's like, yeah, man, like, we're going to get somebody else in front of you, you're wasting a scholarship.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a good idea to keep going through the portal for this. And I mean, you can't really ask for a better one than Jeter. And everyone knows too, college kickers notoriously not consistent, so if you can find one that is very consistent, that's huge. And that's something that I mean, I don't want to say that, Notre Dame would have won more games if they had Mitch Jeter this year, but some of those games, it changes how you approach the games, how you approach late game situations. Schrader had some misses that changed how they coached the rest of the game. And, if you get a guy who's consistently making those kicks, that's huge.
Yeah. Like if you can get like a sure thing, or at least what you're getting, like that's out of your kicker, like you don't want that variable, right? Like the last thing you want as a coach is you have, like, can we count on him? Right. Like we're on the 25. And when we need a field goal, like it changes the way you call plays. It changes the way that you could be like, you would be less aggressive, right? Or you could be more aggressive. Like it's, so you want to have that sure thing there. You don't want to use a scholarship on a kicker because, like you said, you have a guy who has a quality leg. You don't even know how he's going to adjust to the pressures of like he could be a fantastic kicker, like in high school and everything. But then you put him out in front of 80,000 people. You don't know how he's going to react to that. You don't know if he's going to be able to keep his form or keep his nerve or anything like that with a transfer like this. With whether it be a grad transfer or a fourth year guy, whatever it may be, you've seen him kick in high leverage situations. Like we said, like Mitch Jeter's kicked in Kyle Field, and Notre Dame's going to open the season in Kyle Field, right? So that
when you're kicking in SEC stadiums, right? I mean, the crowd is against you, right? So,
right. It's tough. Like it's real. It's as pressure packed as it can get. And you want someone who can handle the pressure, and you want a shirt that can handle the pressure, Jamie. You want to be handling pressure at all times. And so what you want to do is you want to go over to ESQ Clothing for this holiday season for your brother, your dad, your husband, whoever it may be, to check out ESQ's bamboo dress shirt, which you've seen on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. It's the world's most comfortable dress shirt made of sustainable bamboo fibers. The bamboo shirt is naturally odor resistant, wrinkle resistant, even machine washable. It's 3 degrees cooler than cotton, Jamie. So Mitch Jeter could have ESQ under his jersey And he doesn't feel the pressure. He doesn't feel the heat because he's got the bamboo dress shirt under there, and he doesn't have to sweat it out. He can just comfortably make his kicks, and you can comfortably go through your life and get ahead of the holiday season. Time's running out though, right? It's the 14th now, so we're not really getting ahead of the holiday season. You just need to take advantage right now. Use ISD 25 to get 25% off your online purchase at esqclothing.com or visit God Chicago showroom to get your perfect custom fit. That's ISD 25 for 25% off. Everyone, John Imperial. It's hard because people, they know when the segs are coming. It's tough. It's tough on that. Another commitment Notre Dame got, RJ Oben, Jamie, and this is a very big one. This is a very big for the defense. And I kind of previewed it in the intro there, but he's a defensive end from Duke. He's a good athlete, right? He's got some quality pass rush moves. I know Jamie's got a lot of thoughts on him. He's a D-line guy. So tell us about RJ Oben, Jamie, what he brings to the defense.
I mean, I think he's an immediate starter. He's going to fill the shoes of JJB, pretty well. I mean, he got a Senior Bowl invite and turned it down because he didn't want to be like a late round pick. Basically, yeah. He wants to be kind of more than that. And I mean, I think he has the potential to be more than that. He's obviously a 6-year player, 6'4", 260, over 30 career starts. His dad is former NFL O lineman Roman Oben. But like 27 pressures in last season, 37 in 2022 and 29 in 2021. Like, that's pass rush production. That's a guy who can get after it. He has NFL traits. He's long, above average twitch, over 17% win rate versus true pass sets, which are, the non-play action, non-screen, non-quick game things, like straight true dropbacks, basically. So he's winning in those pass rush situations, and he wins with like a variety of moves, right? Like he's a guy who you can tell, has more to his craft than just being like a one move guy who just wins with speed or wins with speed to power or long arm or whatever. He's got more to his game than that. And he can also rush inside as a 3-tech and has shown some of that too. I mean, the one thing is he hasn't been a very consistent player versus the run. Not good enough, I would say. And that has been something you see him with the ability to set the edge, but and I don't know if because this happens a lot too, where there's some coaches, the defensive line coaches, where they're like all about the pass rush.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's literally like, you get an Indy, that's all they're working on is pass rush. And that's great. And guys do get better. But, when they run at you and you're not consistent with your hands and your technique and your feet, like, that's when it comes back to bite you. Right. And I don't know if that's the case with Oben, if that's why he's not consistent there. But I can tell you this, like, Al Washington, Nick Sebastian, that defensive line group, like, they are going to rep the crap out of that stuff and they're going to work it. And that's one of the reasons why JJB went from being like a minus run defender to like a plus run defender, a great run defender this year. Right. So, and I think, he has the traits. He's long and strong, right? Like, he has the chance to be a very good player at the point of attack. And he's got like enough like lateral ability that he can make plays there too. But if you look at kind of like where he's at, so JJB had 20 run stops this season, which are like, failures for the offense. So
failures for the offense. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way to look at it is, if it's 3rd and 2, he gets a tackle for, a 1-yard gain, gets a stop on 3rd down. That's a win, right? If you get a tackle 4 yards on 3rd and 2, that's not a win, right? So right. JJB had a lot of stops in situations, right, where the expected points added, the EPA was good for him, and Oben did not have a lot of that. Basically that was his kind of like JJB this year was like his 3 years. And that's got to change. Like he's got to be a better run defender. And that's going to be very important. But that's also too why I imagine one of the reasons why he chose Notre Dame, because he wants to prove that he can be more of a complete player, and then, be a higher pick, and become a mid-round pick, become a guy who maybe you become a day 2 pick from that. And I think that's a possibility with him. And automatically he's a guy who can play on third down and help them out there. And it just, instead of being like, wow, man, I really hope Aiden Gobera is healthy from his knee and he's ready to go in camp and all that kind of stuff. Or, man, I really hope like Brendan Vernon is ready to play. Well, we don't even know if Brendan Vernon, if his best position isn't 3 tech.
Right.
So you don't want to put guys in positions that you want to let it figure out on your own. And Notre Dame is still kind of recovering from misses at defensive end in general, Viper and big end from Mike Elston's time at Notre Dame. And this and JJB and him are like terrific answers to do that. And then, you're looking at like where things are set up in the future. Things are going to look rosy with, I think, what they've landed there in the last couple classes. Like certainly I think like now Bryce Young doesn't have to be a guy where you're like, man, Bryce Young might have to be a rotation guy. Yeah. And if he's good enough to be a rotation guy, great, but he doesn't have to be. And that is always a big thing.
Yeah. A couple questions from Rajon here. One of them is, how much did Oben's game versus Notre Dame factor into Notre Dame wanting him? How did you feel Oben did against Notre Dame when they played?
I mean, I thought he was good in that game, but fine. But he wasn't someone who like, he didn't give Joe Alt the business,
Fisher
or
Fisher,
Fisher the business, right? Like that wasn't the guy who gave Fisher a tough time. Was when they moved Dwayne Carter outside, who was their defensive tackle, who was like their all AC defensive tackle. When they moved him out of end, he gave Fisher a tougher time there. So he was fine in that game. But I mean, I don't really judge anyone based on like, man, this guy, he didn't win enough versus Joe Alt, because no one really won against Joe Alt, right? But I mean, I think they saw in that game that he did well enough, and they watched him a ton. And it's just like what you said last thing about like, they're very familiar. They scouted him. They scouted Duke quite a bit.
Yeah. Matt McCarthy asked, would you be open to bringing in another defensive end that would be an upgrade over Botelho? So we're talking about a Viper now.
Well, I think it's part of that is, how do they feel about Botelho? Because he was hurt. Like, and this is something I mentioned on Power Hour this week. He's played hurt like basically the whole year, right? And I had heard that it was like not just one thing. Like, he was wearing the neck roll at the end of the year. Yeah. He got a neck thing, or he had a shoulder thing. That he think he might have had like some kind of muscle pull or something. Like he was not the same guy. He wasn't the same violence, the same twitch off the edge. He wasn't the same guy. And that was obviously a factor for him. So maybe they think, oh, he's going to be healthy and he's going to be there. And then also too, like, they have to be thinking that like Josh Burnham's going to take a step. They're going to get, I mean, as far as I know, they're still getting Kano Kia back. Mm-hmm. So he's another guy to kind of throw into the mix too. So that's not technically a portal guy, but that is a guy that you're just adding to the mix. And maybe he'll be ready right away. Maybe don't know, but we'll see. And also Boubacar Traore is like going to be a guy for Notre Dame next year, whether or not he's a starter or not. I mean, that's up to him in terms of where he can get in terms of being like an every down player. But I would be very surprised if he doesn't play on third down next year as a pass rusher. Plus they're landing guys like, I mean, we just talked about Bryce Young. Like they're landing some good young pass rushers too. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they would, if there was some Viper who was like the perfect fit that they probably wanted, like, I think they would go for it, but one, there's not like a ton of those Viper types out there in the portal right now. I haven't seen anyone that like really stood out as like, man, this is a guy that they should be going after. And two, even if you look at like what they were looking for on the edge with a guy like Oben, like if they didn't get Oben, it could have got dicey. Like I don't know where they were going to go after that. So it's not exactly a loaded position. At least this cycle that I've seen from the guys, like excluding guys like say Marvin Jones Jr. just went in the portal from Georgia. I mean, if Marvin Jones Jr. wanted to come, you'd be like, yeah, okay, sure, yeah. And I really liked, I mean, him from Georgia. I really like Doris Smith from Georgia too, who didn't really play much, but I think the guy's just like, he's a freak show athlete and was a guy who was really, really high on as a recruit. But they're undergraduate guys that I'm going to guess they didn't go to play school. So like, I think that is a hurdle. Also, this guy's probably looking for a pretty big payday bidding war type thing. And I don't know. So I mean, other than those guys who kind of pop up, who they would be like this year's Chop Robinson, who went to Penn State a couple years ago, who was a high recruit from Maryland that ended up going to Penn State and being really, really good. He's probably gonna be a first round pick. I don't really see too many other guys.
Boubacar seems like a just like that's going to be like a big thing next year. Like there's going to be a lot of buzz there. It just seems like
I think
the vibes on him, the vibes on him are really good, just behind the scenes. Yeah. And then what we saw when he got on the field, just like immediately you put him in the game and he gets a sack. Like he's a really talented player.
I thought he was more impressive than Isaiah Foskey when Isaiah Foskey was a freshman in his first camp. And I mean, people were buzzing about Foskey, and obviously, if he's Foskey, would be pretty great.
That'll work out. That'll work out. He can end his career with the most sacks in the history of the program. Let's see. Let's move on here. Michael says, Greg and Jamie, where does Notre Dame go with portal recruiting now? Third wide receiver, safety, offensive tackle. Any names you can mention? Also, expect more names to enter portal after bowl games. Notre Dame may be waiting on. Thanks. It's funny. We had before we started recording, Jamie had talked about like he expects a kind of another wave of people after the bowl games come up to enter the portal. Not just Notre Dame, but opponents as well, other programs. So where does Notre Dame go with portal recruiting, third wide receiver? It's possible Jahmal Banks is going to visit this weekend. Matt had an update on that. He said he would. I think he said he wouldn't be surprised if that happened, but I don't think it's like set. I do wonder, and we talked about this post show on Tuesday, if Notre Dame feels like that's a good fit in terms of the overall room. Like I think Jahmal Banks in a vacuum is a very good football player. And if he did end up coming to Notre Dame, like that would be a value add just from a talent standpoint. He's very long. Like he's very like he's one of these guys, like he's a long strider, so it doesn't look like he's running as fast as he is, but I think he's pretty quick. He's kind of like Stovall in that way, right? Like where it's just like the legs he doesn't have that like quick turnover twitch, but you can tell like he can pull away from players. And he's done very well. He has like better production than like Bo Collins, for example, like a lot better production than Bo Collins. Playing in an offensive system that was very conducive. It's funny, like he had a very good season for Wake Forest in 2022. And it's like, I remember the whole like talking point when Sam Hartman came over, it was like, he has better talent at wide receiver than he did at Wake. And it's like, that's kind of proving not to be correct. Like Jahmal Banks and A.T. Perry are better than obviously what he had this
Donovan
year.
Green as well.
Yeah, it's like not even close actually. So it's just like he's a talented player, but he would be, in my opinion, more of a boundary or field guy. And Chris Mitchell's a field guy. Bo Collins is a boundary guy. Like I don't think it would truly affect the current players on the roster. So like Jaden Thomas or Faison or Greathouse, like I think those are more slots. but there's an importance to pecking order, I think. And I think this would disrupt it a little bit. Now, look, if Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell are okay with it, like if everyone's on the same page, then I think you would take him, right? But I think when you have players who have committed to your program, like you kind of do need to make sure like they're okay with you bringing in someone who's ostensibly going to play their position. They're all here for 1 year. It's not like it's a multiple year kind of experiment. And then there's the other part where you have 3 players who are here for the one season, right? They're going to have urgency. Like they're going to want balls thrown their way. Like they're going to want targets, you know? So that's the kind of what Notre Dame needs to work through there.
Yeah.
I guess I'll ask you, like, do you think he's good enough to kind of overcome all of those questions?
I mean, I think like you said, in a vacuum, 100% you add him and he makes the room better, right? Like he makes the talent better.
Yeah.
He's good. Like in that sense. Yes. Like I think, 0 drops on 88 targets last year, like pretty good. He was extremely productive in 2022, just great ball skills. Like you said, more productive than Bo Collins. But if I'm Bo Collins, I'm like, you told me I was going to be the boundary, and then you're bringing another guy. Like, if that was me, I'd be like, okay, like, I mean, I only got 1 year left, man. Like, and now you're bringing in another guy. Like, I don't think that's great. I mean, if Bo Collins is cool with it, whatever, and he's like, oh, whatever, bring in as many guys, then yeah. But unless you already talked about it before with these guys, then I don't think so. Because I think you don't want to be USC. And by that, I mean talent over culture. I guess you could say Colorado too. Like, that's not a good situation. Like, USC, there's a reason why things like fell apart there for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you sign all these, on paper, I mean, the defense had no business being 100th on paper. And, there is a lot of blame to fingers pointed at Alex Rinch. But on paper, just like talent level, with the guys they brought in and stuff too, there's a lot of guys who started and were decent players at other places. Maybe not like, all Americans, but decent players. And just imagine you were a decent player and you started and played a lot somewhere else. And then you're not playing at USC and you're on a bad defense and you're going 7-5. Like, that's not good for culture. That isn't good. And they had a bunch of guys like that. Or if you're like, say, Shane Lee, who was the leading tackler, the Mike linebacker the year before. And I mean, I'm not saying Shane Lee was a great player, because I certainly think, like, he was a guy who's an Alabama transfer. And, I mean, should they have upgraded? You could argue yes, but then you go there and, you're probably like considered like, maybe a captain or something like that. And then they bring in Mason Cobb and it's like, well, Shane Lee, you're, hit the showers, man, because you're not going to play that much this year. Like, that sucks, right? If you're transferring into somewhere, and I get it. It's a business. You should treat it whatever. Like, but still, these are kids. This is like a thing that you have to manage these personalities. Like, I mean, it's not quite the same as doing it on the New England Patriots. You know what I mean? Like, because he can't just cut and run to some other team that easy. It's not as easy in, they can't just trade you mid-season or something like that. That's not happening. Or even if I was like Mario Williams, and I'm not saying Mario Williams is great or anything, but he had more targets as a true freshman at Oklahoma than he had this season at USC. And he had like way more targets as a sophomore. But even if I was Mario Williams, I was like, you're feeling like, man, I'm coming here. I'm going to be like wide receiver 1. And then all of a sudden this spring, they're like, well, Jordan Addison's available. And although that's great, I mean, Jordan Addison helped them. He's one of the reasons that they won all those games. probably wasn't the best for guys like Taj Washington and Mario Williams. Probably were like, wow, that sucks for me. And even though like Taj Washington got to eat this year, but Mario Williams didn't, and now Zachariah Branch is coming, and like, and I understand.
Well, and then they go, and then the year after that, they go get Dorian Singer.
Yeah,
which
right?
and
So,
that didn't work out, right?
yeah,
Like because for him or anyway, he was over 1,000 yards at Arizona, and then this last year he was a disappointment.
there's no way that he doesn't regret it. Like he can,
Right.
unless he's just straight lying to himself, right? Like, and you don't want to get caught up in that, right? Like, I think one thing that the Notre Dame staff has done a great job of, specifically with the guys on the roster, is being like honest with them about where they stand, right? So if they're honest with saying like, look, we got to get 3 receivers, and they told everyone in the thing, it's like, listen, we're just going to get the 3 best guys, and it's not anything where we're looking at like taking away a spot from anyone or anything, but just look at what happened to us last year with all the injuries. And we just can't have that because that derailed the season, right? Like, I can see them winning it that way, but unless if they did that, then I think they can go and get Banks, and he's a worth it to go after. If they haven't communicated that, that's where it could get rocky, where all of a sudden, maybe Collins feels a little bit like miffed. Maybe Jaden Thomas feels a little bit miffed, or like, I don't know, right? Like it could be like that, and you don't want it to ever get like that.
And I think this year is fairly unique in that like the wide receiver position has just been depleted. It's been depleted from the guys that they recruited, and I don't think it's like it's very easy for me to just for those players to on the roster to tell them like, hey, like it's not that we don't think you guys are good. Like we're gonna play you, and we are invested in you. We don't have numbers, truly don't, right? And so you got to get at least 2, and then the freshmen come in. Like I think next year, this won't be the case. They won't be taking 3. Maybe they'll take 1. Depending on development and who thrives and who grows, and on and on, right? And I don't think that would be the case. And honestly, like I don't know that. Like people talk about quarterback, like where that is going, and you can't take a 1-year guy like every single year. I think this might be the last year of that because
I think that
because you have Minchie, Carr, and then Deuce. I think one of those guys like will be ready to go, or Angeli. Like, but I think, I mean, it's just like a perfect illustration. Like they just weren't equipped with the type of players at that position to just build year over year, right? Like Tyler Buckner is no longer a football player. Drew Pine is not a football player right now. Now, granted, he's trying to he wants to get his degree so he can grad transfer. Although I don't know that he actually has to do that because the ruling came down. Like he doesn't have to wait now, right? Like he can transfer again and not have to sit a year. So I wonder if that changes his calculus. But
well, I think he just wants to get the degree.
He probably wants to get a degree, right? But so he wants to play again, but he's not going to play football at like a major college, right? Like he's just not going to do that. And so like that's where Notre Dame's quarterback position was, right? And so it's like I think Notre Dame looks at it like we need to bridge these 2 years and then get the developmental guys with CJ Carr and Deuce and Minchie and Angeli, right? I think that's what they're looking for there. So I think this year is fairly unique in the types and the numbers of players they're bringing in at like a single position, specifically talking about wide receiver here. We do think they need a tackle. We do think they need a safety.
Yeah.
Beyond that, is there a need? And I don't think we have names for either of those positions, by the way. But
no, not right now.
Yeah. So where do you see a need other than those 2 spots, Jamie?
I don't really see a need other than those 2 spots because, especially now that we should also mention that Jack Kaiser announced that he's going to come back, and I think that's important for the linebacker room. I mean, because let's face it, if he wasn't back, the linebacker room is really, really young, right? It's really young. He's the only guy really with experience. He's a guy who can play multiple positions, has played in big games, made plays in big games. I don't even think it's guaranteed that he's going to be a starter at Mike or Will or whatever, but he's going to play and help the team, and he can mentor these guys. He's also going to be a core special teams guy. And maybe he takes another jump and ends up being like a quality starter too. But like, it's not, it's a really good thing to have that because it's a buffer. So then it doesn't become, man, they really need KVA to like play as a freshman, or, Bowen, like, you better be the Mike linebacker this year, like all that kind of stuff. And it's not to say that, I mean, Drake Bowen might be the Mike linebacker and he might be phenomenal. Like that could happen, but it's just one of those things. You don't want to be in a position where all that has to happen for second year players, right? Like that, that's a lot to ask for guys who haven't really played that much. Because in general, like most of those guys, even though if they're ready to take a big leap, most of those guys aren't ready to be like elite players in college football. So, I mean, I don't think they need to take a linebacker now. Like I wouldn't have thought.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that they could have gotten someone in the portal better than Jack Kaiser?
I mean, maybe they could have, but then if you're taking somebody else, that is also rocking the boat in terms of like all these young guys. So that's another thing. That's roster management and understanding all of that too, right? So if you're taking, say, the guy who was all Pac-12 from Oregon State, right? And they're getting that guy. Does that guy make them better on paper? Yeah, he does, right? I mean, without saying, I haven't watched a ton of him specifically to say like, man, this guy is really, everything is advertised. I'm just saying he probably makes the team better. But all of a sudden you're blocking somebody's spot. Also, I believe he has multiple years left, possibly too. And it's just, I mean, if you're a guy like Jalen Sneed, who's been kind of like waiting his turn and trying to get that spot, and if you're, if you're Osbury and whatever, like all these guys just want to play, and then it's like, this is their chance. And if you're like already taking away, like you're automatically taking away a chance from them to compete, that's not a good thing for the room, I don't think. So, I mean, which is why you don't want to just totally like mercenary it and just like do that, because I just don't think that's good. And if you look at like where the top teams in college football, just how it is, they're not adding a ton. It's complementary pieces, right? It's complementary pieces. And sometimes those guys are great players, but most of the time they're just like JJB, like really good players that's like kind of like exactly what you're hoping for, but not like, I mean, Notre Dame's 4 guys who are All-American, first team and second team this year, all homegrown guys, right? Like, and that's kind of where it's at. But I would say, safety, at least get somebody with experience that can compete there. And offensive tackle, if you can land somebody who can play, then you got to get them. But like, I mean, I don't know, like the people that are out there right now. I mean, I don't, there's nobody out there that I would think is a guy that, is that you would be sure is like better than what Notre Dame has. Right. So I just don't really, and if that's the case and you're just bringing it in, then, and that guy comes in and he doesn't even start, like, it's just, I don't know. I don't think that's, the greatest thing. And, also too, I mean, I just had to mention, because the one guy is in the Roosevelt Carney guys in there again, just being like, I don't know if like, please look at the names who are in the transfer portal for some of these positions, because you're not improving on guys who are already really, really good players for Notre Dame. Like no one's doing that. That's not something happening. If Howard Cross went in the portal, like Greg said last time, he'd be like, everybody would be on him. Like they'd want him. And Also, too, like I think how Notre Dame is approaching it in terms of being like, okay, well, we're going to take this guy from Wake Forest, or we're going to take this guy from Duke, or we're going to whatever. It's like this just in all those, every one of these Power Five teams has players good enough to play for Notre Dame. And when those guys want to transfer, those are 100% the guys that Notre Dame should target. And they've done it. And they've absolutely done it. And it's smart. It's a tidy bit of business.
Yeah. Brendan makes a good point about Kaiser. Jay also made a point right after that, which is, Kaiser provides locker room stability and knowledge of playbook system that any transfer they take wouldn't have. Right. So like, it's not just, you're not looking at player for player with Jack Kaiser. Like they do need that. And if you want to, ease the transition of a Drake Bowen or Jalen Sneed or Jaden Osbury, like you need someone like Jack Kaiser out there to kind of ease that for them. Right. And to make it a lot easier transition. So, and the thing with the portal is like, you want to add for sure, but like you do have to consider that stuff. Like you do have to consider your roster, right? And you have to consider, like, it can't just be, especially at Notre Dame, it can't just, because it's very easy to leave Notre Dame. It's a hard place to be, right? And so it's just, you want to be aware of like, hey, we still need to, manage our roster and develop our recruited roster, because you just like I said, it's just easier to leave Notre Dame than it is to say, oh, I want to go to Notre Dame. And so it's just like they have to be cognizant of that. You have to be aware of that stuff. So like you want to make sure that you're making enhancements, but you're not breaking the culture like you talked about. And so like that's where you want to focus on the enhancements. And if you have a website you want to enhance, Jamie, what you can do is you can go to vsrmediacompany.com, which is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo, whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business. VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshot, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. You like your website, enhance it with some VSR Media.
Just one other thing on that too, like I think with the Kaiser and the knowledge of and him being able to be that resource, not just for the guys that are already there, but like the freshmen coming in.
Yeah.
Right. Also, just like a guy, like everybody knows Jack Kaiser, the guy works. He works. I mean, that was like that same thing with Bertrand and Maris too. Like those guys worked, right? They set an example and they had that example set for them. And so you just have another guy doing that. And it's not to say that like, these other young guys aren't, there, but maybe they're working hard, but they're not really like playing at a high enough level that people are going to follow them yet. Like that is a thing. And I think that point you make too, Greg, about guys coming in and having to learn, because I definitely think that was the thing it didn't work out with Carter at safety, right? And I think, and he was already switching positions and he came in late. So that was a problem, right? And I think that he just was never was able to catch up, I think. Yeah. And that was like the main thing. Cause I think physically he can play at Notre Dame, but maybe mentally he just wasn't there to be that. And maybe he's going to go somewhere and a smaller school or whatever, and he's going to play corner and do fine or something, right? Like, I don't know, but that was something there that I thought about a lot with him. And I was like, man, I just think maybe if this guy came in January, it could have been different, but maybe it never would have, maybe it never would have worked for him. And I was reading something recently about, your Baltimore Ravens there, Greg, and Roquan Smith, and just how when he got traded by the Bears, he was like immediately, he just one of those guys that like he knew the defense in a day. Like they just literally like plugged him in and he was like the Mike linebacker. And not just that, he like all of a sudden made other guys better because he could tell them what they were doing. Like Patrick Queen became a better linebacker because he played with Roquan Smith. And how many guys are out there like that in the transfer portal? I mean, none really. You know what I mean? Like 1 in a million kind of thing. You're not getting too many of those guys.
Right. This is a good question from Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. Jumping on late, sorry if it was asked. Do you think Notre Dame makes a run at the Stanford tight end, Ben Urisic, who is now a grad transfer? This is interesting. If he wanted to come, I'd take him. I would.
I mean, he's a good player, but that's another thing where so you're going to take him, but it's like that kind of rocks the boat with maybe Mitchell Evans. And I guess it depends of like if I thought Mitchell Evans wasn't going to have a chance at being healthy for the season, then yeah, that would be like a perfect kind of guy to target and see if he wanted to come because they lost days and then they don't have to like, I think, Larson is definitely an H-back type who's probably not going to be a guy who plays as a true freshman. And just in terms of his blocking and stuff. So I think from that perspective, I would say only if you thought Evans wasn't going to do, then you'd like maybe consider it. But even then, I mean, Eli Reardon might just explode next year.
It's hard because there's so much we don't know.
They have so much talent.
There's so much we don't really know.
I mean, it definitely would be a luxury. It definitely would be a luxury to take him. And I think for him too, I think for Urisic, it would be a mistake to go to Notre Dame because he might be the third best tight end on the team next year, right? Or the fourth. Like that could happen. So as good as and talented as he is, like that's the issue. And that's why I don't know if we're ever going to see a tight end transfer into Notre Dame. Just because it's like you're walking into something where it's like they're loaded, right?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the only reason you would think about it is because Evans is hurt. Raridan is often hurt. And so then that just leaves Flanagan and, Davis Sherwood. And so you just like it. There's a lot there that would make you think about it, right? Like if Evans wasn't hurt, then it's like, no, like you just don't even consider it. So there's a lot to consider. I don't know. It's from a pure talent standpoint, you would, but like Urisic gets hurt a lot too. So it's just, in my opinion, it probably won't happen. Why would you like for him? It's like, he's a good enough tight end. You can go somewhere and he's their best player. Right. Or at least their best tight end. And like, that's not like you said, that's not completely the case with Notre Dame. Coach Chris Waworka asks, when a player enters the portal, can the coaches reach out to them to get them to stay? Yeah. I mean, it's their player. Yeah, absolutely. They can. I just think like usually unless there's a coaching change, right? Like for example,
Houston Griffith. Yeah.
Houston Griffith, like he's going to leave the program. They bring in Marcus Freeman, and Marcus Freeman is someone that is new to him. He doesn't have any past relationship. Marcus Freeman says, hey, I want you to come back, right? It's kind of like being recruited by a different school because it's a different coach, right? So that's kind of a different type of situation there. Where did I want to go with this? CFB Hertz is asking about Emil Wagner. Have we seen Emil Wagner recently? Is he getting up to the necessary size? So have you heard anything about this? We haven't seen. Last time I saw him, he looked basically the same as he had previously.
I mean,
probably
guys don't really
90.
Yeah, guys don't like put weight on during the season, or at
You're
least not
usually
big weight.
losing. You're
Yeah.
usually losing weight. Although he's not playing as much, so he probably could maintain at least. But
Yeah.
that's not how the season goes. You're not bulking up and getting bigger as the season goes on.
I mean, I guess he's probably still around 290.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play at 290. It's not like a thing. There's definitely guys who play offensive tackle in college football at 290. But you don't, it's not ideal, right? Just like how you can be Howard Cross and be 288 and play, one tech, right? Like that's something that you can do, but you better be great in all these other areas. And, I don't think he's there yet. So I think it'll be really interesting to see, like, is Wagner going to start in this game? I don't know, right? Like, what are they going to, is he going to play? How are they going to configure it? He's really only worked at right tackle when we've watched him. Could he work at left tackle? I would guess probably not for this game, because it's probably a lot to ask a guy to do it unless he's been, working on it in practice for a long time that we don't know about. But I don't know. It'll be interesting. My guess is he will. I mean, I'd be shocked if he wasn't over 300 for next season. But still, he still has to go out there and, play at a high level and practice at a high level and show that he can do it. And obviously, like, we're talking about like, oh, Boubacar Traore is like an ascending player. It's like, well, how's he do against Boubacar Traore in practice? How's he doing against, Botello, who, obviously didn't have a great year, but he's a guy who could beat a lot of, college offensive tackles. Like, can he block him? How's he doing against Burnham? How's he doing against RJ Oben in the spring? Like all that kind of stuff. Like that's what you're going to assess, because you're going to face, I haven't looked at all the edges that they're going to play next year or whatever, but like, Texas A&M is going to have at least a couple dudes that are going to be tough to block. Florida State, will have some dudes. So that's going to be something. And it's like, even if like he's good. So like Liam Eichenberg in his first year starting at left tackle for Notre Dame was pretty good. He was fine. He got better every year. That's for sure. But in his first year against Brian Burns, who, is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL now and was a first round pick, I mean, he got his butt handed to him in that game, right? So what's it going to be like for Wagner or for whoever when they're playing those kind of guys? And all that kind of stuff matters. And Notre Dame's just really been spoiled at tackle positions for a long time, where even if you think about like Blake Fisher this year, it's like he gets beat and people are like, man, Blake Fisher's just like a turnstile. It's like, he really didn't get beat that much, but it's just like people are just used to those guys not getting beat at all, right? And that's the deal.
Fisher was relative to expectation there.
Yes.
Just like, people thought he would be Joe Alt, and he wasn't, right? He was still good. He was still good, good tackle. It just he wasn't that guy. And like it's pretty important. It's like him putting on the weight is important. Like he does need to be a viable player. If you get to 300 pounds, like I think that would be okay. He could really compete on a game to game basis at that weight. What do you anticipate the starting O-line to be in the bowl game? So you think this
guy obviously did read Six Thoughts, because I said,
he didn't read
don't
Six
ask
Thoughts.
me.
Don't ask him about it. I'll say I think it'll be Tosh Baker. I think it'll be Baker, Schrouth. I'm sorry, Baker, Coogan, Craig, Schrouth, and Wagner. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean that easily could be for the bowl game, but I mean, I guess whatever. No, it's not too hard to ask what it's going to be for the bowl game. I mean, I was talking actually more for like next season, because people are like, "What do you think the thing's going to be?" I'm like, "How's this bowl game going to go? Are they going to add somebody in the portal? What's spring ball going to look like?" Because you could have looked at the 2021 spring ball, and then they went through spring ball in 2021, and they were like, "Oh no, we're trouble," right? So it's like, where are they gonna be then? I just don't know. I just don't know. It's like one of those. There you go again. Somebody was like, "Give me props for saying I don't know." Like, I don't know why that's a big deal to say you don't know. Why do people always got to make predictions on like things that are impossible to know? Like, if it's one thing to be like, we have intel that tells us like this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen enough of Wagner in practices the last couple years where I'm like encouraged to think like, I think this guy can be a player. But I also see like, oh, he has a ways to go. And it's not just the weight.
Yeah.
It's not just him getting bigger. And where like Tosh Baker too, like you can say, yeah, he was blocked by Alt and Fisher. So he would, but I'm like, I never saw a guy in practice that I thought this guy is going to be a starter, or like, man, if Alt goes down, just plug in Baker like that. I never thought that once, and he's going into year 5, right? So, and even in this game, people can look at Baker might play awesome in this game. Well, you're not going against the full boat of Oregon State's team either, right? So all that kind of stuff is part of it.
Yeah. John Erickson wants to know the Powerball numbers. Can't share that. That's proprietary information. Joe Bro's asking about the strength and conditioning coach. Haven't heard anything specific on that. I think that one will be like a name will leak, and that's who it will be. That's my big prediction on that. Michael asks, maybe Jagusa play some. Yeah, I could definitely see that being a thing. Cam Hart announced he's going pro. And listen, I think loyal listeners to the Hit and Hustle know that I am a Cam Hart supporter. I am a Cam Hart defender. This last year, people didn't really get on him. He had a very good year. He's 15-28 against. For his career, he gave up 69 catches for 100 on 138 attempts. So our targets, 50% completions against, 5.2 yards per attempt throwing against Cam Hart this year in his career, Jamie. That's incredible. That is like very, very good from a corner that is a 3-year starter. Was a 3-star wide receiver. Like, he's one of these guys where like I don't know who to like even compare him to on the roster, because they're all gone basically. Like not even Lorenzo Styles. Like if I don't know, like if like Tobias Merriweather like didn't have a good like first year, like after last year, they actually just moved him over to corner and he became Cam Hart and a captain, right? Like, it's just so rare to have a guy switch positions like that and then they excel. We've seen it before, right? Like CJ Prosise did it. Obviously Xavier Watts, who is a unanimous All-American now.
Bennett Jackson.
Like, so it's happened, but it's fairly rare, and what a success story for him. And it's nice to see him, like, of all the guys. And it's interesting, like, the reaction that people have had to different players, declaring for the draft and skipping the bowl game. Like, Cam Hart, I saw, got the most, like, yeah, totally makes sense. Like, he literally played with a shoulder harness every game. It's funny enough, every game since this last one against Stanford, I noticed he didn't have it, but he had a shoulder harness every game from 2021 to 2023, minus the Stanford game. So he's had the injuries, and I think everyone understands, like he gave everything to Notre Dame that he could, and now it's like he needs to protect his body and try to make the NFL and try to, I mean, really more than anything, pass his physical, right? I think he's an NFL player if he passes the physical there. Anything on Cam Hart, Gene?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's gonna be underappreciated as a player, and I think also that's a product of like being the other corner
with Ben Morrison. Yeah.
Ben Morrison, right? Like that's just part of it. Kind of how like Troy Pride was a really, really good corner at Notre Dame, but he just happened to be the other corner when Julian Love was there. So that's kind of part of the deal, right? So I think to be honest, if Cam Hart was healthy last year, he might not have come back this year. So I think kind of got a bonus year out of him. Obviously played well. And I think and just in terms of this game and where they're set up too, it's good to get more reps for Jaden Mickey, Christian Gray, maybe even Micah Bell in this game. Like, that's a good thing. It's a good thing for this game. So I'm excited to see. I hope that everything goes great with him. I think if he's healthy, he's going to tear it up at the combine. Like I've heard he's going to test very well. So that's going to be cool if that happens for him. And I'm excited to see how he does at the Senior Bowl because there are just not many corners who are built like him, that could run like him. So, and he definitely got better. Like he developed under Mike Mickens, and it's just another one of those things too, where you're like, Mickens did just a tremendous job and he did a job with everybody. But just really,
he gave up less catches every year since he started. Right. So he gave up 32 in 21, 22 last year and 15 in 2023. So that's development. And that's like really coming into your own. So, I think, Matt McCarthy, do we want to give Dell credit for Cam Hart and Xavier Watson? What say you, Jamie?
No.
No, thank you.
I mean, no, because he certainly didn't recruit them with the intention of them.
I mean, he did a good job of I guess identifying good athletes, right?
But I mean, he wasn't. I don't know. He didn't get the best out of them at receiver, so I mean, I can't give him too much credit for that, right? Like you just can't. So just I don't know. It's like one of those things too. It's like you could kind of give credit to Brian Kelly for it, but like really how much was Brian Kelly involved in any of those recruitments?
I'm gonna give credit to the players. I'm gonna give credit to Xavier Watson and Cam Hart who stuck it out and made it happen when it didn't go the way that they thought when they committed to the university.
Yeah. And
here they both are basically excelling and thriving.
And I think both those guys would give a lot of credit to their current position coaches too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think that's a good place to end it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the like button. Please hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is we are going live. Our next live show is scheduled for Tuesday at 12 Eastern time, as always. So check us out there. Check out, I'm going to have a Dimes with Dara podcast coming out tomorrow. We're talking about, where the ladies are right now. Talk about Muffet getting her statue, which is on Sunday. And then we can talk about, and we're talking about, women's basketball in general. So check us out there and check out irsportsdaily.com for all the latest in the portal and recruiting and things of that nature, bowl prep. So have a good one, everyone. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.